Welcome to MBA 543. This is Chapter 8 for Selling. My name is Adam Conrad, your instructor. So selling and sales management is going to be involved, this chapter, in the buyer process and buyer behavior. A couple of things we're going to talk about is the meaning of a customer strategy, the difference between a consumer and a business buyer, understanding the importance of alignment between the selling process and the customer's buying process, understand the buying process of transactional, consultative, and strategic alliance buyers, and discussing the various influences that shape customer buying decisions. So let's face it, today's customers are very different than they have been in the past. We have a new generation of aggressive, internet-empowered customers, consumers. We see this tremendous difference in the real estate business that I'm in today, is that customers have all the knowledge, and they take very much a deep dive on the knowledge that they have. So a customer will know everything about a particular house that they're looking at, and you as the salesperson may only have a cursory knowledge of that individual house. So it's really easy these days for customers to have very intimate, very deep dive type notions about their information about products, or in my case, houses. So customers have what they call 3 power tools to get their way. They have instant, comprehensive information from the internet. They have immense choice in every segment of commerce, and they can get real-time price comparisons. So you see this in all types of things, particularly commodity type things when they buy, like automobiles. The ability to, and I even bought my last car this way. I tested this out 3 years ago. I bought a car, and it's about 3 years ago this month. I was looking at a car, and I thought I would try a strategy of just doing chat with car dealers to see if anybody would respond. So some of them offered the ability to hit a button and it would chat, and you could have a chat window and that type of thing. And it was interesting because I wound up going with a sales rep because I was very specific about the fact that I wanted to be able to show up at the dealership, compare 2 of the cars that they had, and choose between one of them. If I liked it, I would take it. And I made that very clear, that if you could do this and set this up, I'll come over to Pittsburgh, and in the process of doing so, if you have this ready for me, I'll be able to make a quick decision and I'll make a purchase. And I actually had a salesperson. I had a lot of people kept doing things like wanted to change the mechanism in which I was discussing with them. So they'd say, give me a call. And the reality is, if I wanted to give them a call, I would have given them a call. And I actually teach the same thing to my agents. If somebody's on chat with me and they're fine going through chat, I ask them, would you prefer a call? Would you prefer another mechanism? Ask the customer. And if they say, no, chat's fine, then that's where you stay. You stay in that mechanism. If you say, would you prefer a different method of communication? They may. But there's a lot of folks who actually do a lot of this research while they're at work. And so literally they're not going to pick up the phone and have a conversation with you. They're going to chat with you. So it's real important to mirror the communication method of the client. It's not in here, but it's something I think it's a little extra value add on my part. So Jerry says, this is Jerry Acuff, an example, author of Stop Acting Like a Seller and Start Thinking Like a Buyer, encourages salespeople to develop a customer strategy that adds value. And he says, quote, in order to think like a buyer, salespeople must understand the buying process and focus on what the customer is looking for. So my car example is a perfect one. Too often when I was chatting with people, they would say, please, just give me a call. We can talk about that on the phone. I didn't want to talk to them on the phone. I wanted to really have a chat while I was doing some other things. I really wanted to maintain that chat. Didn't really want to talk to somebody until I knew that they had what I was looking for and they would be able to deliver it the way I was interested. And so this, again, is looking at it through the eyes of your customer. If the customer says, this is the method I'd like to communicate, this is the way I'd like to conduct my purchase process, then you really need to be able to facilitate that and put yourself in the customer's shoes. So a customer strategy is, the textbook, a carefully conceived plan that results in understanding the customer's perceptions and maximizing their satisfactions and responsiveness. So a customer strategy is part of the strategic consultative selling model that ensures that salespeople understand the needs of their prospects in the context in which they make the buying decision. So when you look at consumers versus business buyers, there's a big difference. so you move on and you start looking at consumers versus business buyers. You're going to have some major challenges. There are some similarities between consumer markets and business markets. Both involve people who assume the role of buyer and are looking to have their needs satisfied. However, they really differ in a lot of ways. Consumer buyer behavior refers to the people that are buying individuals that are buying household goods and services for personal consumption, not buying them for their company. Each year, consumers purchase many trillions of dollars worth of goods and services, but business buyers are quite a bit different. They're really looking to buy goods and services for their organization. And oftentimes, these are products that are being sold, rented, or supplied to others. So they're going to need to be able to buy products and do some reselling or combining, packaging, conversion, those types of things. So often, business buyers are collaborating with other business buyers, or you have to work with departments. So like a lot of times you work through a department, the department will make a decision, and then it'll go up to a purchasing agent who actually will then oversee those purchasing, or they'll work in tandem. A buying center in a company is a cross-functional team of decision makers who often represent several departments. Each team member is likely to have some expertise needed in a particular purchase decision. Salespeople have to identify which individuals within a firm will be members of a buying center. So if you're not just dealing with just an organizational buyer, you may be dealing with an interdisciplinary team who makes these decisions. So the big thing is moving from consumer to business buyers is that you have a lot of technical specifications with business buyers. They're going to buy really on rational criteria. They don't get as involved, although there are plenty of instances where they'll get emotionally attached. The products can be often very complex products as well. And so there's a lot more effort that's put into it. And obviously there's whole departments and companies that help deal with organizational buyers. Organizational buyers, typically in a business-to-business setting, follow 3 different types of buying situations. We call that the new buy, the straight rebuy, and the modified rebuy. When you look at any purchase decision, and they call this a new task buy, but typically you see this defined as a new buy. So whenever something has to be bought for the first time, you're going to have a very different, and again, the time that you spend in these is going to be very different as well. But the amount of time and effort you spend is going to vary by task, and obviously a new task buy is going to be typically the most time-consuming, because it's the first time you've bought this product or service. A straight rebuy is a routine purchase of items that are needed to purchase. So you basically just are reordering another item. A modified rebuy is the customer has to modify the specifications, change delivery schedules, or renegotiate prices. You're going to involve different people in the modified rebuy, and a lot of companies really thrive on a lot of this business because anytime there's a little bit of a change, there's opportunity for more margin, particularly when you're dealing with shipping to different locations or different configurations. Those types of things are wonderful because you've already got the relationship with the client. Now they're changing up their order, which typically is a good thing for most companies. Don't treat that like it's a hassle or a nuisance. I know a lot of people like the straight rebuy because it's simple, but there's a lot of margin opportunities in modified rebuys. There are types of consumer buying situations. There are 3 types of consumer buying situations. They are, again, ones that are going to vary greatly depending on the type of situation. So a habitual buying decision is low consumer involvement, and brand differences are usually insignificant. So buying laundry detergent, for example, might be a habitual buying decision. Although lots of companies would like to try to change the preference or change the brand that people that are purchasing laundry detergent might make. However, these tend to flow into habitual buying decisions. Variety-seeking buying decisions have low customer involvement, but are important. Important perceived brand differences might exist. So they might look to say, you know what, I'm really looking to change brands. In this particular example, what's been working before, may have changed, or my preferences may have changed. Complex buying decisions are really high involvement for consumers. So the product's expensive, it's infrequently purchased, and or it's highly self-expressive. So some appliances might be considered to be in complex buying decisions, but really you're talking about something maybe more like a car. Unless your family buys the exact same car every time, that's typically more of a complex buying decision. Let's talk about some of the steps in the buying process. So the typical buying process involves needs awareness. So, there's some awareness that it's like, we need this. And then there's an evaluation of solutions. Like what are the things we could actually, what are the solutions out there we could choose from? What of those might resolve our problems? And then the purchase of the item, and then the implementation of the item. So buying laundry detergent obviously doesn't require all of these steps. Purchasing a car, purchasing software. Software for a hospital is a perfect example of where, we find that what we have isn't meeting our needs. We go out, we evaluate what's out there, and then we determine what's the best alternative, and we buy. Then the big step is getting it implemented to make sure that, and to actually get the use of the product. And so here we have steps in the typical buying process we just talked about. In the consultative selling process, you have needs discovery, product selection, need satisfaction, and service. Steps in the 6-step presentation process is, if you're going to make a presentation around these, is the approach, needs discovery, presentation, negotiation, the close, contract signing, and the service. So you take a look at this 6-step presentation process. This is interesting here. The approach, going out, finding the client, prospective client, engaging with them. Maybe they sent out an RFP. Maybe you had a discussion with somebody, found out, hey, these folks at this hospital need this particular software. And we meet with them and discuss what their issues are. Notice we don't go from finding out they have a problem to going in and starting a presentation and say, this is what we have, this will work for you. That's not going to work for folks. You got to make sure you figure out what their needs are as a department, as an organization, as a company, as a hospital, for example, what it is that's going to solve their problem. So you need to figure out what those needs are and then present the solution to them. And then, of course, negotiations are going to take place as a result. So the buying process and buyer types, obviously you're going to have different types of buyers. The customer's buying process, value creation selling approaches, the 3 value creation selling approaches appeal to certain types of buyers. We talked about these a little bit in Chapter 1. So we talked about Chapter 1, we introduced the idea of transactional selling, consultative selling, strategic alliance selling. We're now going to talk about how to work with each type of buyer effectively. So the transactional buyers focus really on the purchase stage. So they're really going to focus on, can I get the best price? They're pretty much, mind's already made up. They know what they need. Their needs are pretty well defined. They know what they need. They know a good deal about the product or services that are out there that they intend to buy. And really, the only thing you can do as a sales rep in this situation is to make it easy for them to buy. So you want to facilitate convenient and hassle-free purchases, eliminate order delays, just make it super simple, super easy for them to do business with you. The consultative process of buyer matches up with the consultative selling approach, which appeals to buyers who lack needs awareness or need help evaluating potential solutions. Some buying decisions require assistance from a consultative salesperson because the product's very complex, like hospital software, for example, or the cost is very high for that solution. A salesperson can add value by focusing on needs awareness, where they can help customers gain an understanding of their problems and create solutions to those problems. So here you can be very instrumental in making sure that they understand and you've identified. And again, this is sometimes where you find out we're not the best fit. If you recommend another product, you don't get the sale, but you may have built a lifetime customer because you were able to solve their problem. Your companies aren't really wild about that sometimes, but again, it might be the thing that makes a big difference down the road. Strategic alliance process buyers match up with the the strategic alliances when you talk about that as a purchase in terms of your marketing. So you can essentially achieve a marketplace advantage by teaming up with another company. So you partner with your client to create an approach that is from careful study and careful analysis. You now have a solution that is really world-class. And now you've got a strategic alliance buyer who might help you market the product, who might you speak at conferences on the product. So there's really strategic alliance buyers at some point, really get together and figure out there's really a lot of mutual benefits to working together, because it really adds bottom line results for the customer. It adds bottom line results for the vendor, for the salespeople. And so you really have to figure out what that looks like. But I've seen instances where you sell software to an entire health system, and they are able to quantify the results of the software and do case studies or white papers on those types of things. So those could be very, very powerful sales tools, and be very powerful customer references, which are extremely helpful when you're selling products. Buyer resolution theory, the 5 W's. So the buyer resolution theory focuses attention on questions a customer may need answers to before making a purchase. If you aren't able to answer these, you could run yourself into a problem not being able to complete the sale, or have a customer objective that stands in the way of making a sale. So it's often referred to as the 5 W's theory. It focuses attention on the questions that they're going to have before they're going to make the purchase. And so let's take a look at each of those 5. So the buyer resolution theory is, once they've established answers to all of these areas, they can go forward. So let's take a look at what some of these questions are. Why should I buy? So here you're looking at, it's sometimes difficult to provide folks with an answer to this question. Sometimes salespeople ask this question like this will just fail in their attempt to help customers become aware of a need. So you need to be able to explain to them, why should they buy? They might have something that works in their mind perfectly well now. So again, you're going to have dug in deep to figure out, is it really working well for them? They may think it is. Somebody a level or two up that's making a decision says, this works fine. We don't have a problem there. You may need to dig in. What should they buy? Once they finally agree that they have a need, then you're ready to address the second buying decision. So you must convince them that what you have can satisfy their needs. So obviously it's going to be you and some other competitors. So now it comes down to where should they buy? So now you're trying to get them to identify why they should buy from you versus other sources. And so, a lot of times people are trying to figure out, what's the best source of this, and is it the right choice for me? And is it a fair price? And so how are they going to determine fair? They're going to look at fair based on all different types of prices available, particularly for transactional buyers. Why is yours, 10% higher than the next competing company? Customers are very educated and very informed. And so you're going to have to make sure that you can articulate your value to them to make sure that they buy from you. And then the when, when should they buy? So again, I talked a little bit about timing, and some companies, some folks will actually try to time it based on what they know. Financial projections come out for certain companies. That could be an angle. It could be that they need to buy it in advance so that they have a spare. It might be they need to buy because they have an event. And I like to refer to those as critical events. So the customer needs to buy because there's something that's going on that makes them pull the trigger. They need to make that purchase decision. So when they should buy is also another important piece, because as a sales rep, you could have solved all the other problems and then find out they're really not looking until next year. Well, that you spend a lot of time, and you hope that they come back around next year. So we look at buyer behavior as a model. So the fifth learning objective is really to discuss the influences that shape customer buying decisions. So people don't always buy for what we perceive to be the logical choice. We got to look at what the influences are on customer buying decisions so that we can adapt our messaging to them. So let's take a look at some of the things. So we have basic needs and group influences affect buyers. When you look at formulation of customer perceptions and buying motives, they may have emotional and or rational buying motives. They may have product and or patronage buying motives that get to their buying decision. So I'll focus on this one a little bit because this one is one of the reasons why sales reps at companies are often recruited. This is why sales reps in many companies are retained, because they have patronage buying motives. So they're used to dealing with the same people. So buyers are buying from the same folks they've been buying from. And so I've dealt with salespeople in my career that literally just switching companies means all their buyers go with them because their buyers just like working with them. And so hiring that sales rep is a shortcut to getting to sales results. There's often, by the way, legal ramifications for that, so you have to double check. There are things known as non-compete agreements and whatnot, because obviously companies want to prevent that from happening. But you want to keep that in mind because there's emotional reasons and there's patronage reasons that people will continue to do business with a particular company. Then you get back to, and I'm sure you've seen this in other classes, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you really want to look at understanding the forces influencing buyer decisions. If you want to gain insights into customer behavior, they're motivated by both physiological and psychological needs. And you want to look at this and look at this in reference to how people make decisions. Human needs are arranged in a hierarchy according to their strength. And this theory rests on the assumption that as each lower level need is satisfied, the need at the next level demands attention. Obviously, the most primary needs are at the bottom, and the most secondary and higher level needs are towards the top. So obviously, as we work up through here, their social needs for why they purchase a particular automobile are very clear. People want, they choose a particular automobile based on social and esteem motives, often because they want to be associated with a particular social group or class. What are some group influences that affect the buying decision model? So the people around us are also going to influence our buying decisions. And they're grouped into four major areas. Their roles, their reference groups, their social class, and their culture and subculture. And so you have to understand these different relationships that your buyers have with other people and other groups, because they can obviously make or break particular sales. So very much look at the groups, reference groups, social class. Again, cars are a perfect example in how people buy into a particular social class. Buying motives. Successful salespeople have adopted a product strategy that involves why people are buying. Why is this purchase happening? An emotional buying motive is one that prompts the client, the customer, to act because of an appeal to some sentiment or passion. When people buy a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, they're paying for much more than a motorcycle. They're purchasing an entry into a community or a social group of like-minded people. So emotions can be a very powerful piece of the buying motive. A rational buying motive usually appeals to the customer's reason or judgment based on objective thought process. So people are going to make a decision based on profit motive or service, quality of service are going to be drivers for that particular type of buyer. Another way to explain buyer behavior is to distinguish between patronage and product buying. Patronage buying usually is driven by motives that are reasons that they have for buying, and it simulates repeat business and referrals because they're used to doing business with a certain way with a particular company, and so they just continue to buy. So patronage buying they're just going to continue to buy from the same business. Product buying is one that leads a prospect to purchase one product in preference to another. So again, those comparisons with products are very similar. How do you create value through the buying process model? So lots of description here is, strategic initiatives identified. You can present and design unique strengths that fit the strategic initiative of the client. Needs awareness. You partner with customers to understand their unique needs in new and improved ways. Evaluating solutions. You configure or adapt superior solutions to their unique needs, resolve their problems. They purchase and they implement their product. Again, so this is how you create value as a sales rep, as a salesperson for particularly for complex buyers or for companies, business to business, through the process. Understanding the customer's value or the customer's buying strategy is really a matter of asking a lot of questions. You need to discover that through an assessment. So lots of questions. Maybe you have a formalized assessment. Maybe you don't. Develop one. You want to ask appropriate questions. You want to listen to what they're telling you. Listen to what they're not telling you, and make observations, because they differ. People's buying processes differ. Their strategy and then their culture drives the differences quite a bit. So you take a culture in Japan, decisions are made typically in groups. In China, a senior negotiator leads. In Germany, even for routine decisions, it's top management, top level. Latin America, relationship building occurs before negotiation. So again, the culture, the nationality, the culture of the folks that you're working with in their own experience drive this purchase process quite a bit different and how they buy. So in review of Chapter 8, we've discussed the meaning of a customer strategy, explained the difference between consumer and business buyers. We've understood the importance of alignment between the selling process and the customer buying process. We understand the buying process of transactional, consultative, and strategic alliance buyers, and discuss the various influences that shape customer buying decisions. And that concludes Chapter 8.